sounds like you obviously, right, you have a lot going on in the city council. Do you think 2 years is enough?
Enough for what?
A 2-year term?
To get accomplished what
Well,
we want to accomplish.
I have my feelings, and certainly I'm sure the three of these also. We're one of the few cities, we are the smallest city in Arizona, by the way, and we're one of the few that only has 2-year terms. Means every, the state Congress people running, or the House, they run for 2 years. We run for 2 years. And it's difficult. We have had situations in our history, in our past, where the city applied for a grant, and sometimes you don't get a grant until on down the road, 3, 4, 6, 9, 12 months. And we would get a change of administration, and the new one didn't follow through, and we lost grant money. Some of you may know, that's been here a long time, knew George Nurhan, former mayor at Wetuka City, who's now dead. George and I were very good friends, and he used to write and say, Bill, we appreciate you all more than anything because we get your grant money. And they did, many. They built City Hall, fire department, a library, and on and on and on with grant money. And some of that was already approved for us, but the administration that took over did not follow through.
We'd like to be there to see what we started finished. So that's basically what it boils down to. If you've worked on it, we'd like to see how it's finished up.
Is there a possibility that changes, the 2-year term is extended?
There's a process outlined that would have to occur. First, the council would have to vote to want to put on the ballot a full-year term, and then it has to go through the election process. The people would vote on it to approve it, and even then, the state would have to approve that change.
Yeah.
See, we operate not under a state constitution, which most of the cities in Arizona do. We work under a federal charter that was given to Tombstone in 1887.
With that question, I'm sorry. One of the questions that I've heard was the redistricting of the city and the wards, and I've started researching that. Dividing the wards up a little bit better. That is a very lengthy process to redistrict for the small town. It turns out it's a state level, and then it could potentially even go to federal level to have those party lines district lines moved around. Yes, Jerry Mandarin.
Yes. Okay, so in line with what you just answered, what would be the purpose of redistricting? And because actually, normally when people talk about districts, it's because there's a certain amount of people that would change the vote. Like here in Tombstone, each one of you get.
Ward 4 compared to my ward, how many registered voters he has in his ward compared to registered voters in my ward is like comparing apples to dump trucks.
Ward 4 has about 3 times minimum of what Ward 1 has.
It's
So
very hard to serve people when it is so lopsided. You don't get to enjoy your ward much because you don't have the time to do that.
What is your area?
And he's got the time.
Starts
because
where
of
it ends where?
Yeah, it starts, I believe, right around 12th Street, and it goes way out, take Camino, goes way out there, and then there's a section right past it that actually is right outside the ward. But in fact, sometimes when I get calls from there, I still try to see if the city can step in and see if we can do something, even though they're not completely in Ward 4, to try to do something because they are right there in the boundaries of it.
So the thing is, well, I was just saying, because I grew up here and there were not a lot of people out there when there was a Ward 4. So I understand that part of it. So in that aspect, because there would then be 5 wards, that would make 6 people. So in everyone's, would you
No, I don't want to make.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how would that actually change the dynamics of the city council? How would we benefit from it as a city?
It would benefit us as, if there's 800 registered voters, I have 200 that are in my area. He has 200, she has 200, he has 200. So in theory, we can all answer equally the same amount of questions and help the same amount of people and, you know, make it fair for everyone, where, again, he has 3 times as many as I do, you know, and again, we help each other's out. You know, people come to us with questions and we still try to get them in the right direction anyhow.
Do any of you have an opinion on that, whether it would be something that you would support or not support?
I would support it. I think it needs to be done. You have, I like to think of a pie that's cut into 5 pieces, but he gets the smallest piece, I get the next bigger piece, she gets a little bit bigger piece, and he gets the rest of it. And like one man, one vote.
Don't talk about pies in front of a fat man, for God's sake.
I just think it would make all the voters more on an equal basis if the district were pretty close to being equal.
Thank you.
Well, also, if you're gonna redistrict, you could add another district too.
Well, that's
Just
possible.
Just think about it, and all of a sudden there's one more person.
But then when you have 6, you have more potential for a tie. Now some
And
cities,
so be it.
beg your pardon?
So be it. Then go to the table and discuss it instead of eyes.
I would support, redistricting if it came up as far as my vote. And as he said, there's 5 of us voting, and that's 20% each person. So 2 votes don't get much done. 3 votes drives the train, no matter what the ideal is, good or bad.
In Ward 3, I have the west side of 4th Street to the east side of 9th. That's Ward 3. You know, a lot of people don't know where the wards begin and end, but that's what Ward 3 is. 4th to 9th,
From there all the way out.
and you're all the way out.
In order to get from point A to point B, that's gotta happen. The redistricting has to happen, and then you have your 5-year plan that you need to do to adapt to the communities. I used to be the chairman of the finance committee in Massachusetts, so I know that you have to start somewhere. And when I saw how many that you had
Oh, yeah.
left here, I said, I don't know how you're able to do the job. It is so difficult when you have so many people. The people, the community deserve that. They deserve you to take a look at that. And then when you see the 5-year plan put on the table by this gentleman, you're saying does your finances for you, he'll have exact amounts per the community based on your population. So I would really tell you to follow that path.
Lady back there.
Oh, so I guess my question is, I'm coming in late, but are we talking about redrawing the lines so that each ward is just a little bit bigger and Ward 4 becomes a little bit smaller, or are we talking about adding a whole nother ward?
Not adding another ward, just
Just redrawing those boundaries?
evening
Yeah.
them out ultimately.
Just double checking.
All right, anyone else?
Well,
Oh, yes.
I'm hearing, Colin, that this is a very difficult thing to do.
It's a lot more cumbersome than I say, hey guys, let's do this.
Yeah,
And they say, hell yeah. It's not that easy.
right.
It's, even if we had Dusty involved, then it's at a state level. There's the Arizona Independent Redistricting Committee is who has to be contacted for that. And that's a committee of 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, 1 independent, because they take this very, very seriously about moving around these kind of lines. So that's step number 1.
How long would the whole process take?
Probably till the next election.
Can I make a,
Yeah.
just make a comparison to what he's talking about, redistricting Tombstone, compared to, let's say, in our legislative district, and we know all about how that redistricting goes, and that can shift the power from one party to another party. Here, we are all nonpartisan, so politics does not play into it. So by dividing the pie as equal as possible, then you have better representation for equal number of people.
Gerrymandering.
Yeah, gerrymandering.
Great word.
Since we're on the redistricting issue for lack of a better word, Colin, you brought it up. Has anybody made the first step? Because granted, we realize this is not going to be an overnight process. We might go 2 elections from now before it's completed. But has anybody started the process?
Well, I started researching it after last week, after some of the things that I had heard, so I started researching it, and I'm on it.
After
well,
last week, but not before?
No,
Okay, that's okay, Colin. That's
Yeah,
okay.
no, and
It's a
I've,
start, that's a first step,
yeah,
thank you.
I have researched it, and I'm on to the next step.
Fortunately for Arizona, just for anybody that doesn't know.
What
my
did he
name is
say?
Steve
I didn't hear it.
I'm his father-in-law.
Colin, I didn't hear
I
it.
should-
What did he say?
Nothing yet.
Oh.
But fortunately for Tombstone, if you do decide to go down this path of redistricting, rebalancing our wards, we have 2 of the most powerful people in the state legislature in Cochise County. The president of the Senate, Gale in the House. So they would be a tremendous resource to the city
I
of
agree,
Tombstone
yes.
to get that process rolling on the state level. So Gail Griffin would be absolutely huge, and then the leader in the Senate is also from Cochise County. So a tremendous resource for the city right there that you could draw on. And I'm sure that they'd be right there. I don't think I'm speaking out of school tonight. Gail's always been there for us.
Anybody have about that?
So at the last meeting, we discussed city codes and enforcement of codes for cars that have been sitting idle, that are not moving.
I think city
yards.
codes in general.
Yeah, just so
code
codes in
enforcement.
general. What is your opinion, and what could be a possible solution?
You want to answer first, Ms. Wilcox?
I don't have a solution to that.
I didn't catch it all.
Code enforcement, so she's just asking about, some people are like, hey, these people have their yard kind of out of control, they got like appliances kind of defunct sitting in their, in their driveway, whatever, will there be any kind of code enforcement? Is there any kind of code enforcement? What do the ordinances say?
We've had people ask for private parking in front of their place because they got tired of when we had special events, people parking. We could not do that because everybody in town would want everything around their house to be private. You're open a can of worms when you do something like that. You have to stop and think what's going to happen later, not what's happening right now. And I know there's a lot of houses on every street, the first block down to Stafford, where cars park when there's Eldorado. There's always a big crowd at Eldorado. Well, we cannot give special permission to someone to have a private parking spot in front of their house.
Yeah,
Okay,
I believe what she's asking about is code enforcement for people that have junk yards, old cars that aren't tagged, their houses are dilapidated. And
They just have junk in front of their house.
Go ahead.
That kind of thing.
Okay,
Yeah,
you may
no,
know.
special permits.
May I address that, please?
Sure.
Yeah.
As you know, we have many codes, many ordinances. Some are enforced vigorously, some are neglected. They are not enforced. I can't tell you why they're not. But on any issue that you have, and you think there's a code that pertains to it, we have a complaint form at City Hall. Anybody can go in and ask for one. And you fill that out stating the nature of your complaint. And it is addressed, I can promise you that. It may not be the answer you want or what you get, but that will be addressed.
I want to throw something in here. I didn't move here to live in a replica of Green Valley. perfectly paved streets. Little tiny, ticky-boo little yards. I didn't move here for that. I could move into any suburb in California if I wanted that. I came here because I like Tombstone the way it is. I'm also sensitive to people who might be a little upside down financially and can't get that car for the yard. That's just my feeling.
So now that she opened that up, what I'm gonna do is gonna ask you these questions that were asked in the last meeting, which that was one of them. And so one of the questions, was of course code enforcement, and then there was a follow-up question is, how would you deal with code enforcement with people who are maybe, seniors, maybe they're incapacitated in some way? Is there relief for them?
I think we're trying to mix two different situations on the parking. My understanding the nature of her question was the code enforcement of maybe junk cars, cars not running left.
No, it's not just parking. We're talking about people with
On their properties.
It just doesn't look good, if you're trying to sell a home nearby and you have your neighbors got a bunch of junk in their yard,
Right.
defunct cars, defunct appliances.
That gets back to what I just said to her.
Yeah.
If you have a situation in your neighborhood and it is that way, make a complaint, turn it back in, and it will be addressed. Maybe not in the manner you want or the
Right.
answer you want, but
It
it
will
will
be
be
But,
addressed.
and for people who maybe there might be their property and it might be, a senior person that can't take care of their yard or can't get rid of their garbage, they just don't have the resources.
Right.
Is there resources or relief that the city would be able to guide them to help them with that, so they don't get fined or,
Sometimes there is, yes.
Sometimes there is, like the senior center who does so much for all these people. Again, the senior center is awesome about helping out everybody out. You would know more about it, but I know they've asked for
Yeah.
help and
I've
some
heard that.
labor at times and.
Well,
Yeah,
one thing,
more often than
one
not.
thing I love about the senior center, if now they won't let you take the meals out, and that's understandable. The virus is not as bad. Before we couldn't sit in there and or anything, and so now, but if someone needs a meal, all they have to do is fill out a form, and that meal can be delivered to them. No one is going to go without food if they need it, if we get this done. So that's a great program that we have here in town.
Can somebody tell me who the code enforcer is?
I'm sorry?
There is
Who
not.
is the code enforcer?
I'm
So
sorry.
in order
The
to
code
accomplish
enforcer.
something, she's asking,
Who
you
is
need
the
a
code
code enforcer first.
No.
You need a booklet to say what the codes are, and that the public is aware of them. I can tell you, I've called planning
No.
board, Tim's called
No.
planning board many times, and I can't get through. And that's frustrating for me, because I'm used to just pushing a button. But you need a code enforcer, you need
I
somebody.
can speak for the historic district. We have not Mac, oh God, help us, but no, we have Robert Hendrickson, who is our city, for the
So
historic.
he covers the federal aspect of it.
No, he covers our historic district
Mhm.
to make sure that it stays historic.
But
Now,
that's what made you an historic, is the federal government,
well,
right?
yes, we are
Yeah,
national
it's another
historic.
federal position.
But as far as the town itself goes, I don't know.
We need one.
Well,
And then you have somebody you can call.
Well, I would rather have a leadership that is proactive than being reactive.
Uh-huh.
These are my tax dollars, and I should have the ability to know that someone is not necessarily being a babysitter, but I don't want to be a tattle. You're the leader. Someone in government is a leader. Go drive around. You write a ticket for someone parking on the wrong side of the road. Notice in your ward someone who has got a refrigerator or a bathtub sitting out in the middle of your yard since 1976,
But
I
then,
should-
I hear that, but then do we become like one of those tacky Lawrence Love villages where they
No,
have
that's
this
not
little
tacky,
police
that's
running
called
around?
pride of ownership.
No, that, exactly.
It's pride of ownership, and when I bought my house, I looked at all of the paperwork from the title company, and there are stipulations of what you should and should not be doing on your property. And I just would like to hear, I can give you there's a problem, but what is the solution? So we know the solution is you want me to call you to tell you I've got the problem.
No, I want you to fill it, I want you to go to City Hall, get a complaint form, fill it out, and let the city
But
act
I
on it.
also work, so I have leaders in my community that should be out doing that. That's what you get elected for, that's what we pay government employees to do, that's their job. So then from there, now we know we have a problem, we have an eyesore, and it needs to be taken care of. What can some of our solutions to those problems be for our families and or individuals that are not physically able to get outside and get their yards cleaned up, or their houses taken care of, or
No,
the cars that are not moving? Now, I know in Cochise County, you can get a license plate because you don't have to get emissions tested. So to say, oh, you just need a license plate on it, that's not gonna work. If it's been sitting there, then it's not working. So I'm just asking you, what could some of the solutions to that one particular problem be?
I'm gonna make one comment. I'm gonna make one comment in answer to your question. We have a lot of needs in Tombstone, and we don't have the funding to hire a person to do that job. A code enforcement officer would be fine. We don't have one, and we don't have the money in the budget. So we spread that $4 million, and I'm taking the grant money out of it because we don't have it yet. So we spread it as far as we can, and a lot of needs go unmet, and you've addressed some of them.
We're about 1,300 people, is that right? And that number has been stagnant for quite a while, yes?
Slowly going down.
It's slowly going down. Are you concerned about that? And how do we grow without compromising the integrity of the historic district? Is there a plan? Could there be a plan?
You want to start? Go this way.
It is concerning, certainly, that the population is dwindling, but I'm by no means a doctor or a scientist, so I can't appease to that's why that's happening. It is concerning, certainly, that the population is dwindling, but I'm by no means a doctor or a scientist, so I can't appease to that's why that's happening.
One of the problems that you just mentioned, it definitely affects our growth, is housing. I've been out here since '87. I've never seen the housing market, a house for sale, a house for rent, a mobile home for sale, a mobile home for rent. It's the tightest that I've seen it. I have people calling me every week about a rental, because I used to be in the rental business. They think I still am, which I do keep up with it. But housing is very acute shortage here. And to me, the money people to put in senior housing, which a lot of that's subsidized by the government, so there is money to be made in that, but they'd rather go build a $400,000 house in Sierra Vista and make $100,000 on it and walk away. They're not interested in providing adequate housing.
Would you go for an update to our building code to the most current version that allows tiny homes? If they're on a concrete pad,
Tiny homes.
if they have a skylight, you can climb out of from the sleeping loft, but allow that for infill on existing properties.
John, we, the city, we subscribe to the International Building Code, which most of the towns around us does.
But you're back to 2006 version.
I'm not sure what version it is. I haven't looked at the book myself, but I know we do. And as these changes occur, we accept them and adopt them. But yes, to answer your question,
So
I would
if
like
you
to see
adopted, formally the latest building code.
tiny homes like big home. They have a market, a need, and if it can fill the need, that's what we